The holographic display flickered in the grand chamber of the Galactic Archive on Zenta Prime, casting blue light across the assembled scholars. Dr. Velrix, a tall Crithian with silver-ridged skin, gestured toward the floating symbols with 3 of his 4 hands. "For 340 years, we have studied these inscriptions," he announced at Galactic Council of Xenoarchaeology. His voice carried the weight of a lifetime's work. "And we are no closer to understanding them than the day they were discovered." The room fell silent. Representatives from 40 different species sat in the curved rows of seats, all eyes fixed on the strange symbols rotating in the air. The characters looked rough, carved quickly into metal and stone. Some were angular and sharp. Others were circular and smooth. Mixed between them were abbreviations that made no sense in any known language. Council member Thrace leaned forward in his seat. His crystalline body caught the blue light and scattered it into rainbow colors across the walls. "Dr. Velrix, please remind everyone where these inscriptions were found." Velrix touched the control panel. The symbols disappeared and were replaced by a star chart. 17 red dots glowed against the black background of space, scattered across what everyone called the Outer Rim. 17 planets, he said. All of them show the same patterns. Ruins, fortifications, hidden weapon storage areas, and always these inscriptions. "How old are they?" asked the Delphin representative, her blue skin seeming to glow in the dim light. "Between 600 and 800 years old," Velrix replied. "We have tested the metal, the stone, everything. The dates are consistent across all 17 locations." Another council member, a being made entirely of flowing energy contained in a transparent suit, spoke up. "And you still have no idea who made them?" Velrix's 4 hands moved in a gesture of frustration that every species in the room understood. "None. We have analyzed the construction methods. We have studied the tactical layouts of the fortifications. Whoever built these structures was fighting a war, a long, difficult war. They were outnumbered. They were hiding. They were using guerrilla tactics to survive against a stronger enemy. But there are no records," Thrace said slowly. "No species claims these sites. No historical documents mention them. It is as if these people existed and then vanished without leaving any other trace." A younger member of Velrix's research team, a Crithian named Chorus, manipulated the display. The star chart vanished and the symbols returned, larger now. He highlighted several characters that appeared in multiple inscriptions. "We believe these marks represent military units or groups. These other symbols might be numbers. We have found patterns that suggest organization, hierarchy, command structure. But the actual meaning—" He trailed off helplessly. "We tried everything," another researcher added. She was elderly, even for a Crithian, and her silver ridges had faded to almost white. The quantum linguistic array ran analysis for 60 years. It tested 17 billion possible language combinations. Nothing worked. The AI prediction models also failed. Chorus continued. "We fed them every known language in galactic history, every writing system, every code. The AI could not break the script. It was designed to resist translation. Whoever made it did not want outsiders to read it." Thrace's crystalline form pulsed thoughtfully. "That suggests military secrecy. Perhaps these inscriptions contain tactical information, troop movements, strategic plans." "Perhaps," Velrix agreed. "But why would military messages need to last centuries? And why carve them permanently into walls and metal? Temporary battlefield communication does not require such permanent recording." The council chamber buzzed with quiet conversations as representatives discussed this puzzle with their neighbors. The mystery had frustrated the galaxy's best minds for over 3 centuries. Entire careers had been built trying to decode these symbols. Fortunes had been spent on research. And still, the inscriptions kept their secrets. A young researcher near the back of Velrix's team raised a tentative hand. Her name was Malira, and at only 80 years old, she was barely considered an adult among Crithians. "Dr. Velrix, may I present something?" Velrix nodded, curious. Malira was brilliant but inexperienced. Still, fresh perspectives sometimes saw what seasoned experts missed. Malira approached the display nervously. She pulled up a different chart, this one showing historical territorial boundaries. I have been cross-referencing the 17 planet locations with our historical databases, she said, her voice growing stronger. All 17 planets share something in common. She overlaid the red dots onto the historical map. They all fell within zones marked in yellow. 600 to 800 years ago, these were all contested territories during the Human Coalition Wars. The chamber erupted. Voices rose in surprise and confusion. The Human Coalition Wars? Thrace's crystalline body flashed bright with shock. But humans have been members of the Galactic Union for 600 years. They are peaceful, diplomatic, cooperative. Now, yes, Malira said carefully, but the historical records from the war period are incomplete. We know the conflicts lasted nearly 200 years. We know they ended with humanity joining the Union, but the actual details of the fighting are poorly documented. Many records were lost or sealed. Velric stared at the overlapping maps with new understanding dawning in his eyes. Are you suggesting that humans built these fortifications? That humans created the script. I am suggesting, Malira said slowly, that we have been looking for an ancient, unknown civilization. But what if this is not ancient at all? What if it is simply forgotten? The room fell into stunned silence. For 340 years, the galaxy's greatest scholars had searched for answers in the distant past. No one had thought to look in the relatively recent history of a species that now seemed so ordinary. Thrace stood, his entire crystalline form glowing with decision. Dr. Velrix, I am authorizing a full re-examination of all 17 sites. And this time, include human historians on your research team. If the script belongs to humanity's past, then perhaps humans can help us understand it. Velrix bowed respectfully. As you command, council member. As the assembly began to disperse, Velrix remained behind, staring at the floating symbols. Somewhere in these rough, abbreviated marks were stories that had gone unread for 6 centuries. Stories of war survival, and soldiers whose names had been lost to time. He did not know it yet, but the answer to his life's work was living quietly on a human colony world. An old veteran who had learned these symbols decades ago and never thought they mattered anymore. The symbols continued to rotate, silently, in the empty chamber, waiting. The museum on New Olympus was crowded. The Phantom Script exhibition had drawn thousands, all curious about the galaxy's greatest mystery. Holograms displayed the mysterious inscriptions, while audio guides explained the centuries-long quest to decode them. Jinho Kim, 87 years old and walking with a slight limp, moved slowly through the exhibits. His weathered face showed the marks of a hard life, scars on his hands, a certain wariness in his eyes. He had been a Marine once, fought in the frontier skirmishes 60 years back. Now, he just wanted a quiet retirement. The museum was full of families, students, and tourists from dozens of different species. Children pressed their faces close to the holographic displays, trying to guess what the strange symbols meant. Teachers explained to their students how this mystery had puzzled the smartest minds in the galaxy for over 3 centuries. Jinho barely paid attention to crowds. He had come because his neighbor insisted the exhibition was interesting, something to get him out of his apartment, something to do besides sit alone with his memories. He walked past display after display, reading the explanations without much interest. Then he turned a corner and stopped dead in his tracks. The hologram in front of him showed a photograph of an inscription carved into a metal wall. The symbols glowed blue in the display light. Jinho's body went completely rigid. His hands began to shake. "Sir, are you all right?" A young woman hurried over to him. Her name tag read Yunji Park, assistant curator. She had noticed him staring at the display for several minutes without moving. Jinho could not take his eyes off the symbols. "I can read this," he said quietly. Yunji blinked in confusion. "I'm sorry, what did you say?" "This inscription." Jinho pointed at the hologram with a trembling finger. "It says, Cobra Unit, 5th Regiment. Held position 47 days. Ammunition critical. Reinforcements never came. If you find this, we made it out to South Pass. Remember us. Sergeant Miho." Yunji stared at him in shock. That's impossible. No one in the galaxy can read these inscriptions. Scientists have been trying for 300 years. But Jinho had already moved to the next display. His limp seemed forgotten now. This one says, Water source compromised. Use filtration protocol 7. Safe for consumption. Good hunting. Corporal Day. He continued to the next display without waiting for her reaction. 4th platoon lost. 16 names follow. His voice cracked slightly. Then there is a list. They carved the names of their dead into the wall, so someone would know they existed. Yunji fumbled for her communication device with shaking hands. Please, sir, don't move. I need to call my supervisor, and probably the police, and maybe the Galactic Council. I don't know. Just please stay right here. Jinho nodded slowly. He was still staring at the inscriptions, reading them one after another. His eyes were wet with tears. Within an hour, the museum director had arrived. Within 2 hours, they had established a video call with Dr. Velrix himself on Zenta Prime. Within 3 hours, Jinho found himself sitting in a closed office, surrounded by officials, all of them asking him questions at once. Dr. Velrix's face filled the holographic screen. His 4 hands moved in agitation. Mr. Kim, I must ask you directly. How is this possible? We have used every technology available. The best linguists from 40 species have studied these symbols. How can you simply read them? Jinho sat calmly despite the chaos around him. He had been in worse situations during the war. It is called battle script, he explained. We developed it during the coalition wars. When our communications got jammed or compromised, units operating alone needed to leave messages for other units. We could not use regular language because the enemy would intercept it. So it is a code? The museum director asked. More than that, Jinho said, it mixes old Earth languages. Korean, English, Mandarin, others. It combines them with military shorthand and abbreviations. Then it adds deliberate errors and false patterns to confuse anyone trying to translate it. You have to know the system to read it properly. Velrix leaned closer to his camera. Why was this system never documented? Why is there no record of it in any military archive? Jinho's expression hardened. Because it was designed not to be documented. If we wrote down the rules, the enemy could learn them. The only way to learn battle script was face-to-face, soldier to soldier. You learned it in the field, or you did not learn it at all. But the wars ended 600 years ago, Yunji said softly. How do you know it? Jinho was quiet for a moment. Old soldiers taught the next generation. Not officially. Not in any training manual. Just traditions passed down in certain units. My drill instructor learned it from his grandfather, who actually fought in the coalition wars. He taught it to us during training, even though the wars were long over, said we should know where we came from. And how many people still know this battle script? Velrix asked urgently. Not many, Jinho admitted. Most who knew it are dead now. The language was deliberately not preserved. After the wars ended and humanity joined the Galactic Union, people wanted to move forward, forget the violence. The old veterans kept battle script to themselves, used it as a way to remember their fallen friends privately. He looked directly at the camera. I might be one of the last people alive who can read it. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. Mr. Kim, Velrix said carefully, we have hundreds of inscriptions across 17 planets. If you could translate them, we would finally understand what happened during those wars. We would know who these soldiers were, what they fought for, why they left these messages. Jinho looked again at the holographic display, showing the inscription, Cobra Unit, 5th Regiment. Sergeant Miho, a soldier who had died centuries ago, leaving a message carved in metal, hoping someone would read it someday. I will do it, Jinho said firmly. Those soldiers carved those messages hoping someone would remember them. I will not let them down. Yunji smiled. I will come with you to document everything properly. As they made arrangements for Jinho to travel to Zenta Prime, he stared at the names carved in the hologram. Soldiers dead for 8 centuries, finally about to tell their stories to the galaxy. We are coming, he whispered to the display. Your voices will be heard. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so tense. Jinho stood before representatives of 40 species, many skeptical, some openly hostile. "This is clearly a human deception," shouted a Vexillian diplomat. 3 centuries of study, and suddenly one old human can read everything? Council member Thrace raised a crystalline appendage for silence. "Mr. Kim, you understand the doubt. Can you prove this is not elaborate fiction?" Jinho's voice remained steady. "Show me any inscription. Any at all. I will translate it in real time while your AI systems verify the linguistic consistency." Dr. Velrix projected a new inscription onto the main display. This one had been discovered only last month. It had not been shown publicly. No one in the room except Velrix's core team had seen it before. Jinho studied the symbols for 30 seconds. Then he began to speak. It says, "To whoever find this, we held for 93 days. 7 of us left from 42. Lieutenant Salmon made us promise to survive. We kept that promise. This position is yours now. Use the tunnel system. Maps carved in lower chamber. Stay alive. Private Hyun." The room erupted in voices. Several representatives shouted that this proved nothing. Jinho could have been briefed beforehand, but Velrix was already working frantically at his control panel. He activated a remote drone at the actual site where the inscription had been found. The drone's camera feed appeared on screens throughout the chamber. Velrix directed it to descend into the structure, going deeper underground. The chamber fell silent as everyone watched. The drone moved through dark corridors, its lights cutting through centuries of darkness. Finally, it entered a lower chamber that had not been explored yet. There, carved into the walls, were detailed tunnel maps. Exactly as Jinho had said, the silence in the council chamber was absolute. "How did you know?" Thrace asked quietly. "I did not know," Jinho replied. "I just read what the inscription said." For 3 weeks, Jinho translated inscriptions. Dr. Velrix brought him photographs and scans from all 17 planets. Yunji sat beside Jinho every day, carefully documenting each translation, cross-referencing them, building a database. A pattern emerged, a story that no one had known was there. The inscriptions revealed that during the Coalition Wars, human forces had been vastly outnumbered. In some battles, the odds were 40 to 1, even 100 to 1. Human soldiers did not have superior technology. They did not have powerful weapons or advanced ships. What they had was determination and the willingness to adapt. The messages showed how human units operated. They held defensive positions for months at a time with limited supplies. They used guerrilla tactics, hit-and-run attacks, ambushes. They left inscriptions to help other human units find resources, avoid dangers, understand what had happened. One inscription read, "Echo Company was here. Water in the eastern valley. Avoid the northern ridge. Enemy patrols every 6 hours. 15 of us made it out. Tell our families we tried. Corporal Juno." Another said, "Ammunition cache buried 12 meters north. Enough for 50 soldiers. Use it well. We did not need it anymore. Lieutenant Hannah." Each message was brief, practical, and deeply personal. These were not official military reports. They were messages from desperate people trying to help others survive. Yunji noticed something else. "Jinho, look at this pattern. Nearly every inscription includes names. The soldiers who wrote them always signed their names. And when soldiers died, their names were carved into walls." Jinho nodded slowly. They wanted to be remembered. They were fighting in places no one would ever hear about. They knew history might forget them, so they carved their names into metal and stone where time could not erase them. Dr. Velrix had been listening quietly. "Mr. Kim, I must ask you something. We now understand that human forces were severely outnumbered in every major engagement. By all military logic, they should have lost these wars quickly. How did humans survive?" Jinho was quiet for a long time before answering. "Humans do not have the advantages other species have. We are not the strongest, not the fastest, not the smartest. Our technology was inferior during the wars. We had every reason to lose." "Then why did you not lose?" Velrix pressed. "Because humans are stubborn. Jinho said simply. We adapt. We improvise. We find solutions where none should exist. And most importantly, we refuse to quit even when we should. He gestured at the translated inscriptions covering the walls around them. These messages prove it. Every inscription is evidence that humans were there, that they mattered, that they did not give up. Yunji found something troubling in the records. Dr. Velrix, some of these inscriptions mention agreements. Secret deals between human forces and other species. Treaties that are not in any official records. Velrix examined the translations carefully. His silver ridges darkened with concern. These inscriptions suggest that several current council members' predecessors made secret alliances with human forces. Alliances that helped end the wars, but were never publicly acknowledged. The implications were staggering. The official history of the human coalition wars was incomplete at best, deliberately falsified at worst. As the weeks passed, more inscriptions were translated. Each one added to the picture of what the wars had really been like. Not the sanitized version taught in schools, but the brutal truth of soldiers fighting for survival in forgotten corners of space. One evening, Jinho sat alone in the archive, surrounded by translations. Yunji found him there, staring at a particular message. "What does that one say?" she asked gently. Jinho's voice was thick with emotion. "It says, Final Archive, Designation Tango 7. Everything we were is there. Captain Minji." "What does that mean?" "I think," Jinho said slowly, "it means we have not found everything yet. Somewhere out there is a place where the soldiers stored their complete records. A hidden archive that no one has discovered." Yunji pulled up star charts immediately. Designation Tango 7. That is old military notation. Let me search for it. She worked through the night, cross-referencing old maps, decommissioned navigation codes, and classified military databases. Finally, just before dawn, she found it. "Jinho, I have the coordinates. It is a planet in neutral space. No resources, no colonies, no strategic value. The database is listed as uninhabited and worthless." Jinho stood slowly, his old body protesting. "Then that is exactly where they would hide something important. We need to go there." Within days, the expedition was organized. Council member Thrace approved it immediately. Dr. Velrix began assembling his team. And Jinho, despite protests from doctors about his age and health, insisted on joining them. Those soldiers left that message hoping someone would find it. He said firmly, "I will not let them down now." As the ship prepared for departure, Jinho looked one last time at all the translated inscriptions. Hundreds of messages from soldiers dead for centuries, finally telling their stories. Soon, he would hear the rest of those stories. The complete truth that had been hidden for 600 years. The planet was Designation Tango 7, a barren, worthless rock in neutral space. No resources, no strategic value, forgotten by every database. Perfect for hiding something precious. Jinho's knees ached as he descended from the shuttle. The expedition team included Velrix, Yunji, and a dozen specialists. They had found the entrance exactly where the coordinates indicated, a reinforced door built into a cliff face, nearly invisible under centuries of dust. The wind howled across the empty landscape. Nothing grew here. No water, no atmosphere worth breathing without suits. Just red dirt and rocks stretching to the horizon. "Why would anyone build anything here?" asked Saurus, a young Delphin researcher. His blue skin looked almost purple in the dim light of Tango 7's distant sun. "Because no one would ever look here," Jinho replied. He approached the door slowly, his hand reaching out to touch the metal surface. Dust fell away under his fingers, revealing symbols carved into the metal. Battle script. He read them aloud. "For those who remember, for those who survived, enter and honor the fallen." Velrix scanned the door with his equipment. The lock is biometric. It requires genetic identification to open. "Let me try," Jinho said. He pressed his palm against the panel beside the door. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the door shuddered. Ancient mechanisms activated, grinding and protesting after 600 years of inactivity. Slowly, the massive door began to slide open. It recognized human DNA, Velric said with wonder. They designed this place so only humans could enter. The team activated their lights and stepped inside. The corridor beyond was dark but intact. Emergency lighting flickered to life as they walked, responding to motion sensors. The backup power had somehow lasted 6 centuries. They walked for several minutes in silence, going deeper underground. The corridor was wide enough for 10 people to walk side by side. The walls were reinforced metal, built to last. Then they entered the first chamber, and everyone stopped. A memorial wall stretched before them, rising 50 meters high and extending hundreds of meters in both directions. Every centimeter of the black stone was carved with names, thousands upon thousands of names, each one carefully inscribed. "What is this?" Yunji whispered. Jinho's voice broke as he answered. "Every human soldier who died in the coalition wars. Every single one. They are all here." He walked forward slowly and placed his hand on the wall. His fingers traced the carved letters. Tears streamed down his weathered face. The team stood in respectful silence, understanding the weight of what they were seeing. This was not just a memorial. This was a promise kept, a vow that these names would never be forgotten. They moved deeper into the facility. The next chamber contained data storage. Rows and rows of data cores filled the room, each one carefully labeled. Military records, personal journals, tactical reports, messages home that were never sent. Velrix carefully activated one of the cores. Information flooded his display. These are complete battle records. Detailed accounts of every engagement, every skirmish, every defensive position held during the wars. Another chamber held physical objects. Dog tags hanging from hooks. Thousands of them. Photographs sealed in protective cases. Weapons stored carefully. Flags folded with military precision. Letters written on actual paper, preserved behind glass. Yunji found a recording device that was still functional. She activated it carefully. A woman's voice filled the chamber, speaking in accented English. "My name is Captain Minji Quan, 6th Fleet. If you are hearing this, the wars are over and humans survived. We built this place so our story would not be forgotten, even if we were not ready to tell it yet. Every name on that wall mattered. Every person who fought here mattered. We were outnumbered. We were outgunned. We should have lost. But we did not. We held our positions. We protected our people. We survived. Do not let anyone say we were just statistics. We were soldiers. We were heroes. We were human." The recording ended. No one spoke. Saurus broke the silence, his voice shaking. "Dr. Velrix, I found something concerning in these records. There are documents here about secret agreements, treaties between human forces and other species, alliances that helped end the wars. But none of this is in any public record." He projected files onto his display. Official documents, signed by representatives of several species. The same species whose descendants now sat on the Galactic Council. They made deals with humans to end the wars. Velrix said slowly, reading the documents. Then they hid the evidence. The official history says humans simply surrendered and joined the Union. But these documents show the truth was more complicated. Jinho sat heavily on a storage crate. His body was exhausted, but his mind was racing. They did not want to admit they had to negotiate with humans. It was easier to pretend we just gave up. Yunji continued exploring and found a section labeled Training Archives. Inside were complete records of how battle script was developed, taught, and used. "Jinho, this is incredible. Everything you learned orally, passed down through generations. It is all documented here. The complete system. They preserved it," Jinho said with wonder. Even though they kept it secret from the galaxy, they made sure it would not be lost forever. For 2 days, the team cataloged the archive. Every piece told a story of sacrifice, ingenuity, and survival against impossible odds. They found records of battles where human forces had been outnumbered 50-1 and still held their positions. They found personal journals describing the fear, the exhaustion, the determination that kept soldiers fighting. Jinho found records from a unit that trained his drill instructor's grandfather, a direct connection across 6 centuries of warriors. He read the journal entries with tears in his eyes, understanding now where his own training traditions had come from. On their last night in the archive, Jinho sat alone before the memorial wall. He had brought a portable light and was reading names by its glow. So many names. So many lives ended too soon. Yunji found him there and sat beside him quietly. "Are you glad we came?" she asked. "Yes." Jinho's voice was firm despite his tears. These people waited 600 years for someone to remember them properly. "I am honored it was me." He stood slowly, his body protesting. But he stood straight, like the soldier he had once been. He saluted the wall of names, holding the salute for a long moment. "Your story will be told," he promised them. "The galaxy will know what you did. You will not be forgotten again." The next morning, they sealed the facility carefully and returned to their ship. They carried with them the complete historical record of the human coalition wars, the truth that had been hidden for 6 centuries. As the ship lifted off from Tango 7, Jinho looked back at the barren planet one last time. It looked worthless, empty, dead. But beneath its surface lay the most precious archive in human history. The voices of the past were finally coming home. The revelations from Tango 7 shook the galaxy. The carefully sanitized history of the human coalition wars crumbled under the weight of primary sources. What had been taught as a brief integration conflict was revealed as a brutal 2 century struggle. The Galactic Council convened emergency sessions. Some species were embarrassed by the hidden agreements their ancestors made. Others were simply awed by the human capacity for endurance. Debates raged for months. But gradually, something shifted. The news spread across every inhabited world. Students learned the real history of the wars for the first time. Teachers revised their lessons. Historians rewrote textbooks. The galaxy was forced to confront an uncomfortable truth about its past. Some species apologized publicly. The Crithian ambassador stood before the council and acknowledged that her ancestors had lied about their role in the wars. "We claim neutrality," she said, "but the archive proves we secretly supplied human forces with medical aid. Then we hid that fact for 600 years because we were ashamed to define the coalition. We owe humanity an apology." Other species were less gracious. Some denied the authenticity of the archive. Some claimed the records were exaggerated. But the evidence was too strong, too detailed, too consistent to dismiss. On Earth and human colony worlds, the revelations brought a different reaction: pride, relief, vindication. For 6 centuries, humans had downplayed their own history, trying to fit peacefully into galactic society. Now the truth was undeniable. Their ancestors had fought with incredible courage against impossible odds. The Galactic Memorial Plaza on New Earth was redesigned completely. Architects from a dozen species worked together on the project. The result was breathtaking. A massive spiral structure rose from the plaza, its walls covered in translated battle script inscriptions. Visitors could walk the spiral path, reading the words of soldiers from 800 years ago. Each inscription was displayed in its original symbols alongside translations in 40 languages. At the center of the spiral stood a replica of the memorial wall from Tango 7. Every name, all 1,000 of them, reproduced in perfect detail. People came from across the galaxy to touch the names, to read them, to remember. The Phantom script was officially renamed. Now it was called the Witness script, in honor of the soldiers who had witnessed the wars and left their testimony carved in stone and metal. Jinho was offered everything: university positions, military honors, political appointments, a seat on the Galactic Council. He declined almost all of it. "I am 87 years old," he told the officials who came with their offers. "I do not need titles or honors. I need to make sure this knowledge survives." What he did accept was funding for a single program. He called it the Witness Script Education Initiative. Its goal was simple: teach the language in new generations, not as a military cipher, but as a historical language connecting people to their past. "If we do not pass it on properly this time," Jinho told the council, "it dies with me. Those soldiers deserve better than that." 6 months after the archive discovery, the first classes began. 200 students from 30 different species enrolled. They learned not just a language, but the history behind it. They studied the wars, read the original inscriptions, understood the context of every carved message. Jinho taught some of the classes himself, though his health was failing. He would sit in a chair at the front of the room, his voice sometimes weak, but his knowledge absolute. Students hung on his every word. Yunji had been appointed as the official witness script historian. She wrote books, gave lectures, and managed a growing archive of translated inscriptions. She made sure Jinho's translations were preserved perfectly for future generations. One afternoon, Jinho returned to the museum where everything had started. The exhibition had been completely redesigned. Now, translated inscriptions were displayed alongside photographs of the soldiers who wrote them. Faces recovered from the Tango 7 archive carefully matched the names and messages. Young people from dozens of species studied the displays. Jinho watched a human military cadet standing beside a Krithian scholar. Both were carefully copying an inscription into their notebooks, helping each other with the difficult symbols. Dr. Velrix found Jinho standing there. The old Krithian silver ridges were bright with satisfaction. "Mr. Kim, I spent my entire life trying to solve this mystery. I should thank you for solving it. But instead, I find myself grateful you trusted us with it." "They were not my stories to keep," Jinho replied quietly. "They belonged to the soldiers who wrote them. I just helped translate." "You did more than translate," Velrix said. "You gave voice to the voiceless. You returned dignity to the forgotten. That is a rare gift." As the afternoon faded into evening, the museum began to close. Jinho stood one last time before the memorial display. He scanned the thousands of names until he found one in particular. Sergeant Taeyeon Kim, 5th Regiment, his drill instructor's grandfather. The man who had fought in the actual wars, survived, and passed battle script down through his family. The man who had made it possible for Jinho to read those inscriptions in the museum 6 months ago. "We kept the promise," Jinho whispered to the name. "No one will forget." Outside, the sun was setting over New Earth. The sky turned brilliant shades of orange and purple. Jinho walked slowly toward the transit station, his limp more pronounced after a long day on his feet. But his shoulders were straight. His purpose was fulfilled. Behind him, in the museum, a young girl pressed her hand against the memorial wall. She was tracing the carved letters of witness, script with her finger, sounding out the words carefully. Her teacher, a patient Vexillian with shimmering skin, helped her understand the meaning. "These were real people?" the girl asked. "Yes," the teacher replied. "Real people who wanted to be remembered. And now, because of people like Mr. Kim, they will be remembered forever." The girl continued tracing the letters, committing them to memory. In schools across the galaxy, students were learning witness script. In universities, scholars were studying the archive records. In military academies, cadets were learning the real history of asymmetric warfare from human examples. The voices that had been silent for 600 years were speaking again. And this time, the entire galaxy was listening. Jinho reached his apartment as night fell. He was exhausted but content. Tomorrow he would teach another class. Next week he would give another interview. Next month he would travel to another colony to speak about the archive. There was still work to do, still stories to tell, still names to remember. But tonight, he could rest knowing that the promise had been kept. The soldiers of the coalition wars had left their messages hoping someone would read them someday. Someone had. And now their legacy would live on, not hidden in forgotten ruins, but celebrated, studied, and honored by every species in the galaxy. The last human who could read battle script had become the bridge between past and future. The translator of the untranslatable, the voice of the voiceless.